Hey guys, it's Max. Welcome to my ultimate camera comparison, testing out the brand new iPhone 12 Pro, the 11 Pro Max, and the iPhone XS, and we're gonna find out, is there really that big of a difference between these last few generations? Now I'm shooting using the front-facing cameras, and I've been switching between the audio, so have you guys been able to tell a difference in the microphone quality? Let me know down below. And how does the stabilization work as I am walking? Now with that, I'm shooting at 60 frames per second, and both the 12 and 11 Pro can shoot 4K 60, whereas the XS, that can only do 1080p if you want that 60 FPS. And here's 4K 30 with all three phones. Can you guys see a difference in quality or dynamic range? Let me know. Let's start out with a shot of my dog. He looks great in all of them, but what you'll notice is the iPhone XS could not do a portrait shot from this distance. Now we're gonna start out with early morning shots and then end with nighttime shots where we're gonna have some shocking results, but here they look surprisingly similar. You just see a little bit more pop in the highlights with the iPhone 12 Pro. Now cropping in here, you'll notice once again the whites pop a lot more, but it's also cleaner at the same time with 10 times zoom. I'm noticing that the 11 Pro kind of struggles with white balance, you can see in the cityscape, and then when we punch in, we don't have that much more detail with the 12 Pro compared to even the XS, but what really stands out is how that white building pops once again, and we have a little bit more contrast. We see the same thing with this street. Yes, it is already snowing here. The white balance is great on the 12 Pro. We do have some extra details and slightly better highlights. Taking a selfie in difficult lighting, you can see that the white balance is spot on, and I have a lot more detail in my face due to deep fusion. And then shooting against the sky with that Smart HDR3 really helped over here, where you can see most of the clouds are still there compared to being blown out on the other two. Now that upgraded Smart HDR doesn't always help you. This was a tough mixed lighting scene, and they look surprisingly similar. Now one thing that I noticed is that the 12 Pro could take a portrait mode even if you're very close to your subject, whereas the 11 Pro and XS can't, and at the same time if you're far from your subject, you can actually use the wide camera and still get a portrait shot with the 12 Pro, whereas the 11 it won't let you, you have to get closer, and of course the XS you don't have that ability. Going down to the parking garage, I took the selfie and the 12 Pro looks so much better. I'm sharp. My face is detailed, and the sign in the background is also being kept much more so than the other two. And if you look at the jacket, we have a lot of noise in the XS and the 11 Pro. This is Smart HDR and diffusion working together on the 12 Pro. But when you're in a situation where you don't have crazy dynamic range and it is a little bit too dark for diffusion, the 12 Pro and 11 Pro look almost the same. And of course the XS, well, that telephoto is nowhere near as good and it looks pretty bad. Going outside, let's jump into video quality, and surprisingly it looks very similar, even going back 2 years to the iPhone XS. Now as we start walking, you'll notice some differences. The 11 Pro and 12 match up very similarly, but the XS stabilization is really poor, and we're also blowing out some of the snow in the highlights. And if you're somebody that runs with your camera, maybe chasing your kid, well, take a look at that. That stabilization is pretty horrendous. And this is 10 times zoom, and I'm walking, and surprisingly the Pros do great. The XS, not only does it look super soft and artifacty, it's super shaky as well. Switching back to photo, and our results flip. The XS actually looks better than the 11 Pro because it's missing all of those artifacts that are in the image, and I've seen this consistently with the 11 Pro. The new 12 Pro, well, it takes the best of both worlds, no artifacts and nice detail. Unfortunately, we don't always get extra detail from the 12 Pro. Here it's very bright outside and the images look very similar other than white balance. The same thing goes for this ultra-wide shot where the 12 Pro nails the white balance, and thankfully the ultra-wide lens actually makes use of diffusion much more often than the standard. Now here I'm standing under a bridge, so it is darker, and that's when the front-facing camera actually makes use of diffusion and it looks great. but unfortunately dynamic range really hasn't improved in these extreme scenarios. And if you're getting hit with the sun quite a bit, deep fusion doesn't work because it's ultra bright, and I actually prefer the 11 Pro's photo here other than the flaring. It looks like Apple is really controlling their flaring on the 12 Pro. Where the sunspot is, we're really, getting rid of those rays, and then the reflection at the bottom left-hand side is pretty much gone other than one sunspot, which is awesome. We also have better contrast and white balance. Now, once again, if we're shooting indirect sun, the differences are very minimal, even for portrait mode shots if it's ultra bright like this, and honestly, I prefer the XS photo here. And then looking at more standard photos and really good lighting, there is very little difference other than the 12 Pro, making the highlights a little bit brighter. So you can see in different scenes, we're going from a little darker exposure to 11 Pro getting a little brighter, and 12 Pro, they keep just kicking that brightness up. And taking a look at the panoramas, honestly, there is no difference between the last few years. Now let's talk about edge detection, which the iPhones were not very good at, and thankfully the 12 Pro is a lot better. If we look at the XS and 11 Pro, next to the neck there's issues, where the arms on the statue is, there's a bunch of issues, and the 12 Pro nails it here. The same thing goes with this sign. There's a bunch of edge issues here, including the pole in the background just clearly shows up and wasn't erased on the two on the right hand side, whereas the 12 Pro gets rid of that and everything is much cleaner. And in this very difficult shot, we have the opposite effect. The XS and 11 Pro get rid of that antler in different spots and really mess up on some of the edges, where the 12 Pro was smart enough to keep that all focused. I was really surprised by that, so maybe that is that LiDAR sensor. Now thankfully the Ultrawide has gotten a little bit sharper because it was too soft before, but that's only in photos. In video mode, you don't get any benefits of deep fusion. It is what it is basically. Now, as far as slow motion, it is also very difficult to see the difference, even going back to the iPhone XS. Now, one thing I did notice is if you're shooting 4K 60, the iPhone XS blows out highlights, whereas the other two maintain it. Shooting some backlit portraits, I was really hoping that we'd get benefits of deep fusion here because it was a little bit darker, but nope, we don't. And in fact, I like the iPhone XS photo the best. Same thing goes for the selfie. It was just a little bit too bright for deep fusion to kick in. Now, one huge difference is that the iPhone XS has a lens that is not very wide for the selfie camera. So sorry, Emily, you didn't get to make the shot there, whereas the other two can go wider and you can fit more people in. Now, if you're somebody that takes macro photos, the iPhone 11 Pro can't get as close as the other two. The XS looks good, but it's not as detailed as the 12 Pro. As the sun started to go down, I took a few more portrait shots, and the iPhone XS once again doesn't let you take wide portraits, which was perfect for this location, but the 12 Pro and 11 Pro look almost identical here. And switching to the telephoto lens, the 11 Pro looks the best to me. It looks slightly more detailed, so once again the 12 Pro didn't kick into deep fusion, it was still a little bit too bright. Now, as the sun is setting here, the 12 Pro photo looks fantastic. Not only do we have this beautiful looking sky, but we also have the proper white balance. The snow still pops compared to the XS, which looks very flat, and we have a nice mixture of contrast, so the image just looks awesome. And then for some final sunset shots, once again, the 12 Pro nails that white balance, and we have nice contrast and colors. The 11 Pro doesn't look bad, a little bit too blue, and the XS, it just doesn't look great, and then you don't have this ultra wide as well. I went back to that alley because I was hoping for a night mode portrait shot there, but those lights above were a little bit too bright, so the 12 and 11 Pro look almost identical, and the XS, well, I couldn't shoot portrait mode there. And here is where the magic happens for the 12 Pro, and that is night mode with the ultra wide. The 11 Pro, it doesn't look good. Not a lot of detail. The 12 Pro looks so much better. Once again, taking a darker shot here, you guys see a massive difference when you're shooting with the ultra wide. Look at this church shot. We go from gray, flat, soft to a nice nighttime shot that's bright and detailed. Flipping to the front of the church, that is a huge difference. And I would previously not want to use the ultra wide camera because everything's just mushy, like the shot in the snow with these trees, compared to nice detailed shots. And then going into a restaurant, once again, the darker the situation is, the better and the bigger of a difference we get here. And in this bathroom shot, you guys once again just see how big of a difference it is, not only in the brightness of the image, the contrast, but also the colors, and the ultrawide has less distortion now on the 12 Pro. Now believe it or not, this food shot was taken in very low lighting, and the 12 Pro makes it look fantastic. We're once again seeing that excellent white balance, the extra brightness of the exposure, and the deep fusion helping out with extra details. Now here's a very difficult shot. The 10S has lots of noise and it has a blown out picture in the background. The 11 Pro completely misses focus, whereas the 12 Pro looks like a nice combination of both with a lot less noise. Now focusing is a really strong suit of the 12 Pro. Here's a video where the 12 Pro, probably with that LiDAR, isn't having any issues in really dark lighting. The 10S, nothing's happening. It's just way too dark, and the 11 Pro is just struggling with that autofocus. And when it gets dark enough, we can use portrait mode with night mode on the 12 Pro, and that's how we get this excellent DSLR looking image. The colors are great, the detail is great, very little noise, whereas the 10S, we can't even do portrait shots at the 1x, the standard wide lens. And then in extreme darkness, well, with the 10S, we have to use flash, and it looks unnatural, looks really bad. 11 Pro, it allows you to do it, but look how terrible that looks. So much noise in the face. And the 12 Pro, wow, that image looks like it was taken in the daytime. No noise. Beautiful image, lots of detail. Alright guys, thank you for watching my ultimate camera comparison between the 10S, the 11 Pro, and the 12 Pro. Was there a big enough difference over the last couple of years to get you to update? And was there anything that really stood out to you, that really surprised you, either in photo or in video? Let me know down in the comment section below. Make sure you guys click that circle above to subscribe, because we are going to have more great iPhone videos. We're going to have the 12 Pro review coming up tomorrow. You guys don't want to miss out on that, and you guys can see some other great videos right over there. This has been Max, and I'll catch you in the next video.